Welcome one, welcome all to the much delayed but highly anticipated podcast for Dirt Sheet Radio. Today we are going to be talking about, and I think Nick would agree with me, maybe the last good WCW podcast. It is the Spring Stampede 1999 review. Nick and I have been talking about this for about 3 months, and we've finally lined up our schedule and got it together. I am your co-host today. I am Mack. I'm Curbside Hero, and joined by my friend, my partner, and hopefully not just a one and done WCW podcast, Nick LaRocco.
What is up, or should I say for this lovely WCW podcast, hey yo. We are here. We are going to be talking about WCW. I am so excited for this. I have been wanting to do this for a long time. I am, of course, joined by my boy. And yeah, we're going to just dive right into it. Like Max said, this is probably what a lot of people say is the last great WCW pay-per-view. Honestly, Mac, I'm going to say this. I think if you're trying to get into WCW and you've never watched anything before, this might be one of the starting point shows to watch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, with any WCW show, it has its ups and downs. It starts off hot, 2 great matches, and then it kind of slow burns with Scotty Riggs and Mikey Whipwreck. But we'll get to that. And then, of course, the always controversial Disco Inferno. But, before we start the show, Nick has done some extensive research with the Wrestling Observer newsletter around this time. So I'm going to pass it over to Nick right now to give us maybe some interesting tidbits to start us off and whet our appetite for the, I'm not going to say great, but very good WCW show that they put on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Squared Circle, we got the Wrestling Observer Rewind from April 19th, 1999. Shout out to DePrice82, who's been putting those together. Go check those out, by the way, after this show. They are awesome. He's got a lot of extensive notes here, and it's pretty cool to see those kind of back and forth, like the historical archive of wrestling news. But yeah, Dave Meltzer really enjoyed this show, and one of the biggest things that we have from this show is the fact that Hogan does a knee injury angle in the main event. We're going to talk a lot about that, but there's also some political forces behind that. Hogan and politics, right? That's just his go-to thing, brother.
They go hand in hand.
It doesn't work for me, brother. So he's taking that break and disappearing, and a lot of this, Meltzer says, was because of the fact that the recent babyface turn just was not working and the character was stale. So they're trying to figure different things out, especially because you got to consider at this point in time, pay-per-view buys are going down, the ratings are going down. They're trying to figure out anything and everything they can do to really get that spark back that they had with the NWO several years prior. Another one of the big things coming out on here from the Wrestling Observer is Diamond Dallas Page becoming the World Heavyweight Champion, which Dave says was probably the most unlikely thing since Ronnie Garvin, the Hands of Stone himself, got it.
Oh, no.
So that's a deep cut right there.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, Dave also says that it was very controversial because DDP had some doors open for him by being good friends and neighbors with Eric Bischoff, and the commentators themselves don't even shy away from those facts. They bring that up a lot. So that's one of the biggest things, and it seems that the pop for it was definitely weak, and you'll watch that too when you're checking out the show, but it's definitely something where if they did this a couple years prior, like I wrote in my notes even for the show, imagine the reaction if Diamond Dallas Page was the one that defeated Bill Goldberg at Halloween Havoc. That would have been crazy. But
that diamond cutter would have been just tremendous if he had actually got it over.
Oh man, like that when the jackhammer counter into the diamond cutter, and if that was the 1, 2, 3. Dude, that would have been crazy. But that we'll save that for Halloween Havoc 98. There's no way we won't talk about that in the future.
No, but the one thing that you mentioned, you said that that Hogan's face turn back from the NWO when he came out, with the red and yellow for the first time on Nitro, which was kind of like it felt like a fever dream because he came out to the bird shit logo with the stage that went like this, you know? And he came out and the announcers are going, what's going on? Wait a minute, what is that music? Even though just backstage, and just backstage right before that, they had showed Hogan, who said he didn't bring his gear to the arena, and Nick goes in his bag and pulls out the red and yellow gear, and Hogan's like, oh, all right, hold on, brother, I'll think of something. And then he comes out, and the announcers act like, oh my God, this is the first time we've seen this. And it's like, no, it's not, dude. We literally just saw it backstage.
Yeah, that was all just a lot of very wild stuff. But speaking of wild stuff, one of the matches that I think we're both really excited to start talking about will be Juventud Guerrera and Blitzkrieg. And one of the big notes on here, I think a lot of people cite Dave Meltzer as, loving that kind of the indie style or the, very flippy stuff. But even in his notes in here, he says that was a near match of the year candidate, but it ended with a very scary Hoovy driver off the top. That looks good, but Dave hopes that he will never see that kind of move again because he see that easily going wrong and killing somebody.
Yeah, Dave's like a big proponent of like matches being very safe because if you remember the Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness match at Unified for the Pure title and the Ring of Honor title, he gave that match 3/4 of a star, and he gave 4 3/4 stars, and he took off a 1/4 star because of the ring post spot. And he also, and I don't know if you remember, but there was a match with Hiromu Takahashi and Taiji Ishimori in the Best of the Super Juniors where Hiromu Takahashi goes into the crowd and does like a running drop kick down the stairs and almost kills himself. And Meltzer said it was the stupidest spot that he had ever seen. He still gave the match 5 stars, but at that point the scale had been broken. And he said it probably would have been or he gave it 5 3/4 stars. He said it would have been 6 if that spot hadn't been done.
Exactly. And Dave 100% knows, wrestlers will watch each other's matches and they'll try to replicate something that really, got the crowd going or really made the match great. But he knows you repeat something too much, it's bound to go wrong eventually. I also want to give a huge shout out to Robbie Green, who was there live for Spring Stampede. Dude, that's awesome. Robbie, feel free, my man, to drop anything in the comments to let us know, what it was like being there live and if you caught anything extra that maybe the pay-per-view didn't pick up.
Yeah.
But going back into the Observer, there's not much else on there. One of the biggest things was talking about Dave being completely blown away by how fun the Bigelow and Hardcore Hack match was. And for those of you who don't know, Hardcore Hack is the Sandman.
I cannot wait to talk about that match. I have so many notes for that match.
Absolutely, dude. And another quick note on here was during a match with Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko versus Raven and Saturn, Benoit got busted open pretty good hard way during this match. And yeah, it was a brutal match, but I can't wait to talk about that one because that match had no business being as good as it was. There's so many matches you could say about that on this show. That's what I love about it.
The match had no business being that good, but the match also had 15 different rule changes in the middle of the match. So, but we'll talk about that. But is that it for the Observer, Nick, or do you have more?
Last point on there was just talking about Randy Savage being the special guest referee for the main event, and Dave saying that Randy Savage got the biggest pop of anyone, not just in that match, but honestly probably like anyone in that night, which again, it's the return of Randy Macho Man Savage. How could you not like that? Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the Wrestling Observer from there.
All right. So, so Nick and I are hoping to do a lot more of these. I took some extensive notes, so we're probably going to be here for about another hour. But I'm going to try to take less notes next time, but I'm going to skip some of my notes. But do you want to just dive right into it, Nick?
Yeah, let's go right into it. I gotta say, for that pay-per-view intro, that song really just, I think, set the tone for the whole night.
Oh, dude, it kicked so much. It kicked so much ass. It kind of reminded me of when WWE would start using Saliva and who else did they use? 3 Days Grace and stuff like that. It really set the tempo.
Dude, like, speaking of 3 Days Grace, legitimately, the first time I ever heard the song Animal I Have Become, I thought that was like, wait a minute, was that the Spring Stampede 99 theme song? Because they're so similar.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of bands that sounded like really like started to sound like really similar like back then, you know. So yeah, so we kick off the show and our announcers for the night are Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone, and Bobby Heenan. Tony is wearing a really oversized leather jacket. He looks like he's wearing Mack from It's Always Sunny's duster.
Yeah, the duster.
Yeah, or he's wearing Ghost Rider's jacket from the first movie. Like, this thing was like, it looked like he was Boss Baby in this thing. It was ridiculous.
And his hair is just completely like shot over like a single side.
Oh, dude, yeah, it looked like he lacquered that thing down. It was awesome.
Bobby the Brain Heenan looking like he wanted to be anywhere else but there.
Dude, he looked so checked out. Oh my God, he looked like his best friend had like just died, dude. It was crazy. But Brain points out on commentary, after a year and a half, Goldberg is finally going to get his rematch against Kevin Nash later here tonight.
Sure. Bobby Heenan, you do know that was like 4 months ago.
Yeah, I know, but he did say a year though during the thing.
Well, remember too, this was around the time, and numerous sources report on it. At a certain point, Bobby Heenan just legitimately stopped caring and started to kind of dive into some bad habits during the show.
Yeah, there was a lot of rumors about substance use and back then, but we're not going to disgrace the name of Bobby Heenan because he's an absolute legend and one of the GOATs. Yeah.
And honestly, I think too, like, even though he was checked out, he was an awesome commentator throughout the show.
Dude, I mean, he can turn it on. You can tell like he doesn't care about stuff, but like when the match is like going on, he's very much into it. He clicks on. It's like riding a bike for him.
Right.
But Nick said to me, go into the show blind, Mac. Don't look at any of the matches. Don't look at anything like that. Just go into the show blind. So far be it from me, Tony, to point out that Ric Flair is the current WCW World Champion, which just blew my goddamn mind.
Don't forget, going into this pay-per-view, he's also the WCW president.
Yes. I could not believe I was like, wait a minute, Flair is the what? But that for later. So we start off the match. Out comes Blitzkrieg. Now,
freaking Blitzkrieg, dude.
So if you guys have not seen Blitzkrieg, he looks like Ultramantis Black from Chikara, which is a deep cut. He has like a praying mantis mask, and I'm
going to try to grab a picture real quick.
Okay.
People need to see Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, he's just awesome, dude. He's so good.
Oh, yeah.
But
Blitzkrieg was also at this point, too. I can't think of him being on too many Nitros by this point. I know he appeared a lot on Thunder. Yeah, here's what Blitzkrieg looks like. Yeah,
there he is.
The match itself.
Dude, he looks like if Ultramantis Black and like Jushin Thunder Liger had a baby.
Right. Dude, I remember when I was a young man, I used to kind of think that like, oh, Blitzkrieg, he's like a trainee or something. I used to always think that there's like some connection with him and Liger, especially because they have similar silhouettes, I guess, and then too, the colors as well on their usual outfits.
Yeah, he was a big guy for me in WCW versus NWO for what was it, Super Nintendo, I believe, or N64. Yeah. He was a big guy for me in that match. But Blitzkrieg comes out and he's facing Juventud Guerrera. Commentary says Blitzkrieg is from the Cosmos, and Brain says that the Cosmos is located in parts unknown.
Perfect. Love the Brain.
Yeah, so the winner of this match will get a shot at the winner of the Cruiserweight Championship match later tonight in Yakima, Washington tomorrow night. So commentary mentions that this match is supposed to be Juvi versus Super Callo, but Callo suffered a concussion a couple of weeks ago and was replaced. I think everybody remembers Super Callo as a luchador that has his hat glasses sewn onto his mask and is incredibly based. I love that Super Callo mask. That Super Callo mask
Super Callo always looks so cool.
Dude, and he's still wrestling. I checked his IMDb. Dude, he's still wrestling in 2024 with the Callo mask.
Awesome.
It's
Oh
awesome.
man, he needs to
Yeah,
cameo in AEW or something. I want to
dude,
see Super Flow again.
get him in AEW, get him on ROH. I don't care. Get him in DPW. I don't care where he goes. Just get Super Callow a booking where we can see him. Um, so yeah, the match starts off incredibly slow with a bunch of pinning combinations. With Blitzkrieg complains that his mask was being pulled before they reset. Juventud goes for a monkey flip, but Blitzkrieg lands on his feet, which you can already tell that this match is going to be awesome with just that one move. You're like, oh, okay, I see where we're going.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, a really good handspring elbow in the corner from Blitzkrieg, and he hits the 10 punches in the corner, but he's very slow to follow up. And Juventud Guerrero follows up by hitting a beautiful top rope drop kick to the seated Blitzkrieg. Like, I love that move, man. Like a seated a drop kick from the top rope to the seated position. Oh my God, it's so great.
Dude, one other point I wanted to bring up real quick is Blitzkrieg is legitimately an iconic force. He's only at this point in his career wrestled for about 5 years. And on top of that, he was only in WCW by this point also for like 3 months. So he hasn't really been around too much. He had a couple matches that he had like a win on Nitro and a loss to Rey Mysterio Jr. and an iconic dark match in the middle of 1998, which is available on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's a very interesting grouping of Blitzkrieg and Super Dragon taking on American Wild Child and Dragon Yakuza, which is,
oh my God,
itself a rerun of a match they did like 7 months prior that really impressed Conan. So there's a lot going in there. Conan really, from what I've heard from like a Tom Green deep cut video, loved Blitzkrieg and thought this guy is going to surpass even Rey Mysterio.
Oh yeah, shout out Tom Green, not the comedian, the guy that does the 1 minute videos on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram.
If you're a WCW fan, check out those WCW deep cuts.
Yeah, but things start to pick up really quick when Juventud hits the Undertaker flying cow over the top rope. Now, for everybody who's not familiar, the Undertaker would do a dive over the top rope, and Glenn Jacobs Kane, Mayor Kane, would always say that it would look like if someone threw a cow over the top rope. So he started calling it the flying cow.
Right.
So Juventud hits one of the nastiest brain busters I've ever seen. I thought he killed Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg sold it like he was dead. But kicks out at 2, Mexican surfboard by Juventud, and Irish whip into the corner. Blitzkrieg runs up Juventud's chest and hits him with an enziguri, sends him over to the top rope and to the floor. Blitzkrieg goes for a splash, but Juventud moves out of the way. Blitzkrieg tries to jump off the top rope, but Juventud hits him and comes down to the floor with a drop kick and sends Blitzkrieg to hell. A top rope drop kick to the outside. just beautiful. Yeah, so they do a couple more things like a spinning backbreaker, a beautiful moonsault by Blitzkrieg onto Juventud from the top rope to the outside onto the ramp. Blitzkrieg goes for a dragon sleeper. Juventud reverses it almost into the Hoobie driver. Another reversal by Blitzkrieg. Drops him into a modified death drop, which looked awesome. It looked like kind of like the Sting version, but he fell down. He kind of like fell all the way back down. Yeah, like hit his head on the back of the canvas. It was great. So one point in this match where Hoobie goes up and he looks like he's trying to hit a second rope Destino, and but they both fall to the mat inside the ring like a huge mess up, and the crowd's chanting "You fucked up," and
it was a collapse. I do appreciate the way that Mike Tenay was trying to save it by just like, oh, he looked like he was trying to counter it into a pinfall attempt from the top. Yeah. Even Bobby Heenan was just like, oh, after so much stuff, their bodies are just so impacted by all the crazy moves they did to one another.
Yeah, they both ate shit on that. So Blitzkrieg tries to recover, goes up for the top rope for a Phoenix Splash, but misses. Hoovy with the Hoovy driver attempt, but inside cradle for on Blitzkrieg gets a close.
A really smooth counter, by the way.
Dude, that was great, and I thought it was a 3 count too. I was like, oh shit, this is only like a 5-minute match. Like, really? Okay. But yeah, Blitzkrieg puts Juventud Guerrero up top, looking for a Mari Star cradle, but only gets some of it for another 2 count. They kind of messed up there again. Commentary tries to cover for it, saying these guys are just gassed. They've been going 100 miles an hour since the beginning.
Which they absolutely were, so I get it.
Dude, there was a dive over the top rope the first 2 minutes of the match.
Yeah.
So, but goes up again. He's looking for a superplex. Blitzkrieg goes up to the top again, looking for a superplex. And Juventud fights out of it and hits the super movie driver, dropping Blitzkrieg on his head. He fucking killed him. It looked so good. It was very safe. Very safe. You could tell that Juvi was protecting him on this. Right. But the way that Blitzkrieg's body sold it, it just looked like he fucking died.
And that's the thing too, to always consider, like, Juvi is the master of course, the Juvi driver, but it definitely, and I agree 100% with Meltzer, seeing that move. There's so many untrained wrestlers or people that are going to go and try that who aren't the masters of said move. Yeah. And it could easily go so wrong. So I'm definitely 100% in agreement with him on that.
So the thing about the super Juvi driver is that Juvi was standing on the second rope when he did it, but he had lifted Blitzkrieg up over the top rope,
so high up,
and dropped him right on his head. I'm like, dude, this guy just went to the morgue. He's not kicking out. And I think Brain said something like, you can count to 100. He's not getting up from that.
Right.
But so Juventud Guerrera is going to go on tomorrow night in WCW Nitro in the opener to face the winner of the Cruiserweight title match later between Rey Mysterio and his Cruiserweight tag team partner, his WCW tag team partner, Billy Kidman.
Yes. Also, I want to say with this match, one of the crispest, smoothest Asai moonsaults I've ever seen was from Blitzkrieg there. That was just perfect.
Yeah, and they did call, and Mike Tenay did call it the Asai moonsault, which is great. Yeah. Here's what we've all been waiting for. This fucking match, man. I've watched it 3 times since, and every single time I find something new about it. I think I haven't laughed more in a match than I've laughed at. And this match isn't meant to be a comedy match. This match is dead serious.
The hardcore match we're talking about.
Yes, it is time for Hardcore Hack versus Bam Bam Bigelow. And didn't announce it as a hardcore match. They just announced it, just like, oh, here's Hardcore Hack and Bam Bam Bigelow. But Sandman comes out wearing barbed wire wrapped around him, and he's and he's
his piercings all in.
Yeah, and he's carrying a table, and his valet Chastity, who's Raven's sister, apparently. I didn't follow the WCW lore of Raven because it's non-canon. He was not rich. He was not friends with Canyon, and Sandman's name was not John, so shut the fuck up.
Remember, too, that was the original way they were going to be bringing in Mikey Whipwreck before they dropped the whole thing.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that after this match. So, Bam Bam comes out. He's carrying a dumpster full of weapons, including garbage cans, crutches, and Hack meets him on the ramp, and we are off to the races. Hack puts a table from the Stampede set. Hack puts Bam Bam on top of it. Now, WCW setup for this Spring Stampede was very cowboyish. So they have a stagecoach on the stage, a legit stagecoach that you would have seen in the Hateful Eight or any John Wayne movie or anything like that. So Sandman probably, Sandman decides, I'm going to go up on the top of that thing and do a swanton bomb. That's what I'm going to do. So he goes off, he jumps, he hits a somersault on top of Bam Bam and puts him through a table. Now, the thing is, Bam Bam no-sells that shit, gets right back up and throws a piece of the broken table at Hack and smashes him full stop in the head. Hack doesn't even bother to put his hands up, just takes that shit straight to his dome and dies. I was like, oh my God.
I feel like they were watching that one Spring Stampede match where it was Sting and Randy Savage where they were fighting with the hay and whatnot. And they're like,
oh yeah,
that's what we're going to do. We're going to destroy the whole stage. Someone from production was like, please don't do that. David Crockett's like, please, I beg you. We could jump off the stagecoach, but don't. And it looked like he was kind of almost getting ready to slip off the stagecoach too, how he was positioned on there.
Dude, So that's just the tip of the iceberg of this match.
Yeah,
So
they find a guardrail eventually.
oh god. So Bam Bam throws Hack into the dumpster / laundry basket that he had the weapons in and starts teeing off on Hack with the crutch over and over, just smashing his body with it.
Yeah.
Heenan says it's like having a wrestling match in the middle of a yard sale.
Absolutely.
Hack puts a table between the security rail and the ring, and he gets back in, and Bam Bam completely sends him to the Shadow Realm with the steel trash can right to the head.
Yeah.
Bam Bam follows up by taking a cookie sheet and trying to put it through Hack's forehead. Bam Bam takes the broom and smashes it over Hack's back 5 times. He then puts a plastic salad bowl. He gets a plastic salad bowl and starts using it as a weapon. They completely blow a suplex spot where it looks like Hack tore his ACL.
Oh man, the amount of times Hack was just like using his own body as the weapon.
Oh yeah. So a ladder is introduced, which Hack drop kicks into Bam Bam's face. He puts Bam Bam on top of it and many weapons and climbs to the top rope and does the Sandman salt, hits a bulldog on it. Hack out to the safety rail, grabs the safety rail from under the ring and tosses it inside. Hack sets up a ladder and starts climbing it for absolutely no reason because this is not a ladder match.
Right.
Bigelow shakes the ladder and Sandman does a swanton bomb onto the outside through the table that was propped up against the security ring because in wrestling, if you set it, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they do a bunch of other stuff.
Don't forget Chastity struggling to set up the table bridge.
Oh, dude, she took so long to set up that thing. Oh my god. I just lost my spot.
Eventually, too, she ends up getting sprayed. What was it? Bobby Heenan's calling it Sparky. It was getting sprayed in the cooch.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, Hack places Bam Bam on the security railing and goes to the top. He tries the Sandman leg drop, but ends up crotching himself instead on the guardrail.
That was brutal.
Bigelow stands over Hack with the security railing over his head, about to smash him. He's obviously waiting for Chastity to get in the ring and stop him with his fire extinguisher, but she's taking way too long to get this thing to work. It's way too late, which makes the spot look awkward. And
she was not having a good night.
No. And then the fire extinguisher doesn't work when she gets in, causing Bigelow to smash Hack with it anyway. Yeah. My notes cut off here, but it says, did she get hit with the fire extinguisher?
She didn't get hit by it, but she got sprayed by it.
Sprayed by it. That's it. Okay. And she bails from the ring as Hack is setting up a table on the inside. Hack hits Bigelow in the back of the head with the kendo stick and hits the White Russian leg sweep on the guardrail, laying in the ring. Bigelow recovers, climbs to the second rope for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
Hack follows and tries to put Bigelow through the table from the second rope, but Bam Bam reverses it and hits the greetings from Asbury Park through the table on top of the guardrail and absolutely murders Hack. Bigelow covers and gets the win, and I wrote, holy shit, that fucking ruled.
That match, again, this is another one of those matches on this card where it had no business being as awesome as it was. WCW was not known for their hardcore division, and in fact, at this point, they didn't even have a hardcore championship yet.
No.
But this was just so good, and this was just the epitome of just being an entertaining match. It didn't have to be super, serious. They probably wanted to take it like it was super serious, but honestly, it was just entertaining for what it was. And I looked through online. I think every person that ever reviewed this unanimously agrees that even if it's not the greatest 5-star match, it was entertaining for what it was.
No, I mean, it was just so good. All the Chastity stuff aside, I don't think it needed it, but she was out there and, she had to earn her paycheck for that night. So, but, oh boy, here we go. So Scotty Riggs come to the ring and apparently he's doing.
Wait, before we get there, we gotta go over one of my favorite Bobby Heenan lines.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Where Tony Schiavone is talking about fans just not trying this at home. Don't do this in the backyard. which was relevant at the time because this was around the time there was those like PSAs about not performing backyard wrestling, and this is where Bobby Heenan then says to just do it in your living room instead.
Yeah, this was probably around the time like where the Young Bucks had like their backyard wrestling federation. Probably like right around this time. The Hardys too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, so we go from really good to really bad. So Scotty Riggs comes to the ring, and apparently he's doing a narcissist gimmick.
He doesn't have the eye patch anymore.
No, yeah,
he's not a miracle.
He's not in Raven's flock anymore. And here comes Mikey Whipwreck looking like he just stepped out of the 2300 arena. Riggs looking like 1999 Bobby Roode.
Right.
Scotty Riggs does the with the Rick Rude pelvis thrust to start the match, looking like a dork, running in circles around Mikey until he gets stopped with a slap. Mikey hits him with a slap, and Mikey with a nice spin. Now, I want you to remember this. Mikey comes off the ropes and hits him with the spinning elbow, and it looked really good. But I want you to remember that. So Mikey with a nice spinning back elbow and a clothesline. Whipwreck goes for a clothesline. It looks like it just brushed Riggs, but it sent him to the floor. Mikey now tossing Scotty all over the outside into the guardrail, the stairs, and eventually chucks him back into the ring. Mikey with a nice reg drop while Riggs was draped over the first rope. Mikey with a slingshot, hurricanrana, and goes back to work. Riggs now cuts him off for a long time. We get heat in this match. He knocks Whipwreck off the apron, headfirst into the guardrail to the outside. That really looked brutal. Mikey was a master at making like the smallest things look great.
Right.
Nice looking drop kick by Riggs. He chokes Mikey against the second rope. Riggs working over Whipwreck. The match is starting to get boring as shit. Crowd's chanting boring. Modified headlock by Riggs, who keeps it in for like a good 2 minutes. He's just wasting time here.
Again, this was holy mother of filler matches.
Yeah. Mikey is able to get in some offense, including a kangaroo kick from the second rope. A kangaroo kick and then a second rope drop kick for a 2. Couple of hope spots for Mikey, including a Dragon Rana that only gets a 2 count because Scotty gets his foot on the rope. Riggs throws Mikey off the rope, hits a shitty-looking back elbow that Mikey hit him with to begin the match. Riggs wins.
Yeah, the jumping form. And here's one of the very interesting things going into this. Neither one of these guys has a whole lot of momentum coming into this pay-per-view. Like, I even wrote in my notes here, Mikey Whipwreck is just an interesting case study overall because, you know, he came in kind of like a blitzkrieg where he's got all this, you know, for lack of a better term, just underground buzz going on about him. And, you know, he has like these stray pay-per-view matches. Like he was on the pay-per-view before this, Uncensored. He was in the opener with Billy Kidman, which was a phenomenal match. Great way to open a show again. But then...
But management hated that match because they said it was too good.
Exactly. So guess what? You're going to get punished for having such a good match because allegedly, Vincent Virgil complained to Hulk Hogan about having to follow something like that. So Mikey Whipwreck gets punished by having to lose matches on Thunder leading up to this, which is so amazing because we have a guy representing Thunder, which Blitzkrieg is, you know, also kind of that way, just a Thunder exclusive wrestler almost. But then we also have Scotty Riggs, who barely has been appearing on Thunder. He's instead been appearing solely on Saturday night. So if you weren't keeping up on Saturday night, you'd have no idea about this new narcissist gimmick, which, by the way, he already lost during this gimmick to like Prince Iaukea and just a few other people, but he did defeat the legendary Al Green.
Oh, no. Was he in a mask or not in a mask?
This was lovely Al Green before even the dog era.
Oh, God. That match sucked. But the thing about Mikey Whipwreck is I think that Mikey Whipwreck came along like maybe 10 years too early because WCW was strictly like VHS buzz between tape traders. Right. Because if you weren't at the ECW arena, you were waiting like 6 months to see that show. So only the most hardcore fans actually knew who Mikey Whipwreck was. So when he came into WCW, people are looking at like, oh, who's this jobber getting like the second match of the night? Like, you know, and listen, that's not a slam on Mikey. I love Mikey. I think what he did in the rest, especially the stuff that he did with Cactus Jack and that ECW championship win over Stone Cold when the belt was vacant, I thought was just one of most underdog wins of all time, but he did not fit in WCW. He was not a mainstream guy. He was an underground guy who strictly got buzzed through VHS tapes. And unfortunately, as good as he was, that's all he ever was. And it's sad because he was a great professional wrestler.
Absolutely. I almost wonder now that we're talking about it, if there was something that happened to maybe like a different opponent, like Mikey Whipwreck, because it was a really interesting thing too, was Mikey Whipwreck was just randomly featured on a bunch of WCW pay-per-views at this time. You know, he had Uncensored, he had this, I believe he had a match with Van freaking Hammer on Great American Bash.
Yeah.
So there was like, I don't know if he had like a special contract or what that kept him on pay-per-views, but yeah, it was so interesting how he was treated in WCW, because again, this was someone that came in very buzzworthy, as they were known for bringing in a lot of those guys at the time, and just something didn't work out because of the political struggles backstage.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know, I mean, for guys like me and you, ECW marks, WCW marks, we'll always remember Mikey very, very fondly.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not take any matches, and I didn't take any notes in this next match. I just summed it up because this match was absolutely dog shit. It was. So Conan comes out. It's very weird to see him with two knees that operate correctly.
Right.
There's a sign that reads "Oil of Olay all day, every day," which is a very sign of its time. Tacoma is apparently Bowdy and Rowdy. Disco comes out representing NWO Wolfpack, which he wasn't a member of. He was just glazing the balls of the WCW NWO Wolfpack, trying to be a member. He eventually gets the shit beat out of him by all of them for being a poser, but that's whatever. He comes out here looking like a slapped ass. He comes out here looking like a slapped ass who's going to be kissing Conan's nuts to get a spot as his partner on his podcast in 25 years. Conan has apparently been getting attacked the past few weeks on TV by a masked wrestler named La Cucaracha.
Product of its time, dude.
Conan says Disco is a scrub, a strawberry, and dresses like a piece of shit. Disco attacks him from behind. This was certainly a match. It was way too long. I just put Conan wins with Disco's move, The Last Dance, which I thought was called the Chart Buster, which is just the Stone Cold Stunner. The match fucking sucked. I hated my life, and I wanted to stop watching this show.
It was also like a real weird point about this match was the feud over like Conan's music video that was getting ready to be shown on WCW TV, and Disco Inferno just like, that doesn't work for me, brother, and starts to do his own version of it, which the one thing I did appreciate was going into this match, Disco Inferno is even dressed like how Conan was, you know, where he has like the camo pants. And I thought it was kind of funny that they were like camo disco pants.
Yeah.
I don't know where he found those, but he got those done and made. And I also like how they were almost like, it was a game of Disco Inferno copying and doing everything K-Dog would do.
Yeah, he was trying to do like the rolling clothesline and shit. Yeah.
And then Conan is the one who gets the win by copying Disco. I thought that was kind of funny with this. I also wrote in my notes that Disco was given a whole lot of offense in this match, and it made me note this down, that was Conan trying to prove himself as a locker room leader at this point, because he's got, you know, all this trying to give Disco a lot of offense, and you know there were reports around this time of him seeing himself as a locker room leader, and the fact too that he was, you know, responsible for bringing so many of the luchadors in and managing them, and also being the one who I think really went to bat for Blitzkrieg and making sure everyone knew him as just the top tier talent that he was.
Yeah, so there were rumors back in the day. I did write this down. There were rumors back in the day that Eric Bischoff did not want to deal with the Cruiserweight division. So especially guys that were friends with Conan, like Rey Mysterio and Blitzkrieg and Juventud Guerrera and Psychosis, anytime someone had an idea or a thought, they always went to Conan. And then Conan would relay it back to them. And if they didn't like it, Conan would be their spokesperson and be like, "No, that's not going to work for me, brother." So he was basically the lucha Hulk Hogan, like, no, it's not going to work for Ray. No, that's not going to work for me. Yeah. But at this time, too, there were rumors that Disco was trying to get a job in WWF at the time as well, that he was keeping in contact with WWF at the time.
I can't even imagine Disco in WWF in that time period.
No, I'm talking about Conan.
Oh, Conan, that I could see.
Yeah, Conan was pining for a job back then. There were rumors from early PW Torch. Shout out to Mike Johnson. It says that Conan. There were rumors that Conan was calling people in WWF, claiming that his contract was coming up and that he was very interested. His phone calls were not returned.
They are still probably salty of all the money they spent for Max Moon.
And Mike Johnson was PWI. I'm sorry. PW Torch, I forget who it was, but I used to listen to his podcast all the time. I'll remember the name later. But I said this match sucked and I fucking hate my life. But here comes Billy. But here comes Billy Kidman, and I am so back.
Oh yeah, don't forget black denim jorts, Kidman.
Oh dude, black denim jorts, white shirt, WCW Tag Team title. I fucking love it. I love this aesthetic look on Billy Kidman. It's so good, man. He's one half of the tag team champions, and holy shit, he's facing his tag team partner, a maskless Rey Mysterio, who's the cruiserweight champion. The title is on the line. I had never seen this match, but holy shit, it's going to kick ass, and I'm so excited.
He has the smaller camo pants version of Conan's from earlier.
Yeah. So the match starts off with a bunch of reversals, as the story is that they're telling that they're both evenly matched. The commentary goes dead for about a minute, and I would die to know what they edited out on the WWE Network, because I was watching the WWE Network. Match is going a mile a minute until Rey is dumped over the top rope by Kidman, slingshot plancha, and Kidman is in control early on. Rey goes for a bulldog, and Kidman drops him belly first on the guardrail, which looked brutal. That just looked absolutely insane. Kidman jumps over the guardrail and hits a slingshot leg drop to the floor.
Which is wild from a guardrail.
Dude, I thought he was going to clear it at first, and I was like, holy shit, dude, that was awesome. He rolls Rey back in the ring. Kidman to the floor with the Hurricanrana, Rey with the moonsault, and Kidman catches him, standing tilt-a-whirl head scissors, and here's where completely takes a left turn. On the head scissors, Rey inadvertently smashes his head on the ring steps. The referee goes to check on Rey. They slow it down for about a minute with Kidman selling on the outside. Rey looked like he gave the signal to the ref that he was okay. So,
he kept going.
Yeah, back in, Rey hits a slingshot Des press. Kidman with a running Liger bomb that didn't look fun to take on that hard WCW canvas.
Right. The crunchy canvas.
Kidman with the sky high spine buster that Tony calls a power bomb for some reason. Rey gets tossed out of the ring on his belly. The sliding, when they go to dump him, and he does that slide right to the outside, which is a move that I didn't realize that he was doing all the way back in 1999. Kidman with the standing shooting star press off the apron to the floor, which the crowd does not react at all, but looked fucking crazy. Kidman goes to the top rope, jumps straight into a Mysterio drop kick to the belly. Mysterio goes for the cover. Randy Anderson makes a really fast count, but Kidman kicks out. Mysterio heads to the top rope, hits a top rope bulldog, but Kidman kicks out. Commentary mentions that both men look like they've slowed down, with Kidman considerably looking very tired and blown up at this point, but I think they're just covering for Rey since he really hit his head hard. Right. Tony even poked out on commentary that it's very unusual for Kidman to do this, as his style is usually like move, 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 which is a really good, the commentators are really doing a good job of covering for Mysterio being knocked loosely.
Same for Kidman.
Yeah. Mysterio has a small mouse on the side of his head from where he got knocked, where his melon got knocked on the stairs earlier. Rey with the clothesline. Kidman goes over the top. Rey hits a somersault off the apron, over the top onto Kidman, and rolls him back into the ring. Mysterio goes for a top rope splash, but Kidman pops up and gives him a clothesline from hell on the way down, which just looked brutal.
Mm-hmm.
What must have happened here? Rey must have got knocked loopy again, because there's a long chin lock spot. They're audibly calling spots, and you can hear them clearly over the broadcast, and it seems Mysterio is not happy and he's loopy.
There's a lot of chin locks. I think there's like 2 chin locks apiece for these guys.
Yeah. Rey with the chin lock, and this match is really slowing down. Rey goes for a spear. Kidman moves, and Rey gets his shoulder first into the ring post. Kidman goes for another sky high spine buster, but Rey reverses it into a super X Factor that looked awesome.
Yeah.
Kidman hits a variation of the Angel's Wings on Mysterio after a missed clothesline. I was like, holy shit, the fallen angel. So Mysterio stops, heads up the top. Kidman reverses whatever Mysterio was going for and hits a float over powerbomb into a sunset flip for 2. Mysterio put Kidman on the top rope on the other side of the ring. He goes for a victory roll. Kidman reverses in midair. Mysterio reverses again into a bulldog for 2.9. Really cool looking spot. Ray is shocked that it didn't do it. Kidman is really cool second rope springboard bulldog for 2. Kidman sends Mysterio over the top rope. He flips over the second rope like he's doing the 619. Kidman goes after him, ducks, and ends up on the outside. Kidman is trying to get back in the ring, and his head is between the second and third rope. Mysterio goes up top and hits the leg drop and sends Kidman crashing into the ring. That was awesome because it wasn't like Kidman stopped and just like put his head in the middle of the ring. No, he was legit in motion climbing into the ring when Ray hit it. Ray makes the same mistake every other professional wrestler has done in the ring. What Kidman makes, he tries to powerbomb him. You don't powerbomb Billy Kidman. Kidman reverses it into a face buster. Kidman going for the shooting star press, but Mysterio crotches him. Ray with the super hurricane runner and gets the 3 and retains.
Yeah. And then following up, we're also going to have the winner of the Juventud and Blitzkrieg match, which was Juvi, is going to be taking on the champion on the episode of Nitro following this, Rey Mysterio.
What'd you think about this match, Nick? I mean, I know that they were going a mile a minute until the Rey Mysterio just absolutely obliterated his melon against the ring steps. But besides the 2 chin locks and a little bit of talking on the outside and in the ring, it kind of, the pace slowed down considerably, but it did stay at a Kidman Mysterio respectable level.
It was very interesting, the pacing for this match, because you don't really expect chin locks in a cruiserweight match from these 2 competitors. One of the things I did note on here, and it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of parts where the crowd doesn't care and doesn't react, because one of the first things I have in my notes in all caps is how many times have we had this match by this point? And I mean, here's the thing too, though. Look at what the era was. Like the year before on WWF, how many times at the different pay-per-views did we have The Rock versus Ken Shamrock? I mean, that was just a product of its time. And I think it shows great stuff that these 2 guys have so much trust in the office that they're going to be putting on a banger match on a pay-per-view. That being said, though, I give them credit for being able to pull out new stuff that we didn't always see in some of their other matches. And I think the pacing wise, when it came down to the things like the chin locks and kind of stuff slowing down here and there, I think in its own way definitely helped protect Rey Mysterio, because another unfortunate thing that we know about this era is they didn't really care much for concussions and head injuries. And it was kind of just, we'll just keep going. And I think this in its own way kind of helped Rey Mysterio to be able to still wrestle to this day.
Yeah, that's a good point, and credit to those guys for talking to each other in the chin lock and figuring out a finish, because I'm sure Ray didn't know what the hell was going on and was just kind of like autopilot, like Kurt Angle was in that SummerSlam 2000 match after he took the botch pedigree through the table.
I also want to say, too, these 2 competitors weren't the only ones flying around. We got to give a shout out to referee Randy Anderson for the way he leapt over both these guys for that last pinfall.
Dude, that was so awesome. He was out of position at 4 times during this match, because I legitimately think that like Kidman and Mysterio were like, so we're going to do a bunch of shit and you just need to like make the count and get in a position where you can make it.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, just roll with it. Yeah.
You're going to trust any referee to do it. Randy Anderson was the one to do.
Yeah, he was great. Up next is Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko versus Perry Saturn and Raven in a grudge match.
Such a dark horse match.
Yeah, these 4 have been feuding with each other, but you got to keep in mind that Raven and Perry Saturn are uneven alliance right now. They really don't like each other. They're kind of Saturn had just broken away from the flock, but he was kind of still in the flock, but he's not in the flock. It was really messed up booking. They show a video package of Perry Saturn coming to the aid of Raven during a handicap match. It turned into a tag team match where it looked like the former flock members had won the titles, but referee Randy Anderson disqualified Malenko for hitting Saturn with the title before Benoit could give up, because Malenko and Benoit were the tag champions at this point. Apparently, Saturn and Raven were the ones that interfered in the title match before Malenko and Benoit versus Mysterio and Kidman, allowing them to win the titles. So that's why we got this scrub match. They show a clip of Chris Benoit jumping off the top rope, do the duo diving headbutt, but he misses face first into a chair. I'm sure that will have long-term ramifications.
Yeah. Yikes.
Can I say that, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say this, I love the Four Horsemen music.
Yeah.
It's so good with the
That
horses
cool.
in the beginning.
Yeah, the guitar. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Honestly, when have the Horsemen not had cool theme music?
Oh, dude, it's always been. And then when the Radicals came into WWE, the that fucking kicked ass too. So like Benoit, Malenko, and the combination of those guys have always had good entrance music. But
also, Mac, we need to take a moment because how often do we get the chance for Four Fingers Up? Move excellence, baby.
So Benoit and Malenko come out here with Arn Anderson. They're dressed up like John Moxley from the Blackpool Combat Club. Arn Anderson. Raven and Saturn come out to save it to Raven's dubbed WWF theme, which sucked because I really wanted to hear Nirvana.
Which is such a good song.
Yeah, so they're carrying tables, but this match wasn't announced as a no rules match, but it really wouldn't make sense since they just had a hardcore match three matches ago.
Right. I even in my notes I wrote down Lil Nate, Charles Robinson being super lenient for this one.
Oh, dude, he was going like this the whole match, but yeah. The match starts off in commentary talking about how rich Raven is, and I think I need to remind everybody that Raven did not come from money, and that the WCW storyline is not canon.
But you know what was canon? The Saturn skirt.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I'm going to read this off real quick because we got to get ready for SmackDown in about 50 minutes. So match starts off with Raven and Saturn doing some chain wrestling. It starts to break down a little bit with Raven and Saturn not even bothering to tag in. They do a suplex facebuster splash combination. Looked like it absolutely sucked to take. Raven to the outside. Arn and Malenko start beating his ass. Chops by Benoit. Wishbone on Raven and Malenko is in. Commentary says Raven enjoys the pain and as he is dying on the floor.
Right.
Raven tries an inside cradle on Benoit and gets a 2 count, but the referee, Charles Robinson, is yelling at Malenko, who is standing on the apron doing absolutely nothing wrong. Saturn comes in and turns Robinson around, but Benoit had already kicked out. They isolate Raven from his corner and absolutely beat the dog shit out of him with double clothesline stomps in the corner. Horsemen are in control until Raven gets a boot up and a charging Malenko. Saturn gets the hot tag and he's cleaning house. Diving crossbody doomsday device by Saturn onto Malenko as the match is breaking down. Saturn goes for the DVD, but it's cut off by Benoit. The back suplexes him straight to hell with the drop kick assist, which is always awesome. I love the drop kick German suplex combination. It's so good. Malenko with a tiger driver on Saturn to set up the Texas Cloverleaf, but Benoit knocks Raven off. Sorry, hold on. So Saturn is in the Malenko with the tiger driver. He's in the Texas Cloverleaf, but Raven pushes Benoit into him, and they tumble down. Raven falls down the ring steps in this. Did you see this?
I might have missed that part.
In the background, Raven takes a tumble down the ring steps, and he is like out of commission for like a good 5 minutes.
Dude, those WCW ring steps sometimes they were so small, and I think about how many times the Giant would walk up them and just they topple over.
Oh,
they're so unsturdy and unsteady.
So Cloverleaf by Malenko, but Saturn gets to the rope. Saturn recovers and hits the DVD. Saturn with the cover, but Benoit off the top rope with a headbutt to break up the count. Triple down by Malenko gets 2. Raven taking a nap on the floor after falling down the stairs. Benoit with the 2 off for the backbreaker. Saturn chants. Drop down toe hold into a drop kick in the face. Saturn gets 2. Horsemen are getting booed, even though they're the baby faces in this match. Malenko with Saturn in a sleeper. Raven breaks it up. Benoit nails Raven off the apron into the guardrail hard. Bunch of 2 counts on Saturn off a body slam in a divorce court. Saturn being assaulted on the floor. Mike Tenay says he doesn't understand while Charles Robinson is talking to Raven on the floor. Saturn is getting his ass whipped on the inside. Malenko with an Irish whip, but he whips Saturn into Benoit, who jumps over into a sunset flip and gets a 2 count after Malenko drops him on his back hard. Chin lock by Malenko and slows it down. It's time for a rest. Belly to back suplex by Saturn, and he gets the hot tag to Raven after 8 minutes of getting his ass whooped. Saturn finally gets the tag to Raven.
The crowd was behind that.
Dude, it was so Raven is a house of fire, chops, clotheslines, violence party in the corner. Arn throws a chair from the floor at Raven, but he catches it. Raven with a drop toe hold onto Benoit, onto the chair, which somehow was not a disqualification.
Right.
Even though Charles Robinson...
You go ahead.
Even though Charles Robinson earlier in the match started counting to 5 when all 3 guys were down on the ring and Raven was taking a nap on the floor. Bobby the Brain Heenan says that Charles Robinson is the worst referee in the history of wrestling, and maybe I agree. So what were you going to say? Sorry.
One of the things I was going to say is like the amount of times Raven would do that move where it was, the drop toe hold for the opponent to fall into the chair. That move always looked so brutal, and the way Benoit took that was just crazy.
He got his hands up, but most of his head connected with that chair.
Yeah, and plus like the impact he's flying in there too. Like he had to be quick with that.
He obliterated that chair, by the way.
The chair was not Benoit's friend this show.
No. So Saturn is on top. He goes for a splash Malenko through the table, but Anderson pulls him off, and Saturn is sent to the morgue through the table on the outside, which was awesome. Raven goes to mush a chair into Malenko's face, and he shoves it back at him, and Raven falls like a sack of potatoes. Malenko tries to throw Raven into the corner, but he reverses it and hits the even flow. He goes for the cover, but Anderson jumps into the ring. Arn takes the chair and puts it over Raven's face, and he still has the cover on Malenko. Benoit up to the top and hits a diving headbutt onto the chair that's on top of Raven while the referee isn't looking, which doesn't make sense because there was just a chair in the ring a minute ago.
Which was a hard spot to watch in retrospect.
Yeah, Benoit's face print is in the chair. Malenko rolls over Raven and gets the 3 count. Benoit is gushing blood right over the top of his eyebrow and looks severely concussed, and Anderson and Malenko carry him away from the ring as he can barely stand up.
Yeah, that was brutal, which again, with how things turn out in 8 years, it's definitely hard to watch with that part. But overall, like, dude, this match was just crazy. I loved it. I even wrote down like this match is so freaking awesome. The crowd was super hot, especially for like Raven and Saturn, which is crazy. And you got the Horsemen in there, right? And again, like you think that these 4 guys, like you're not picturing them having such a barn burner of a match, but dare I say this could potentially be match of the night for me. Yeah,
it was really good. I would have been okay if they had just said it was a Ravens rules match.
Right.
Whatever.
Which was actually relevant to what they were doing too with like the whole Ravens contract thing at the time.
All right, so up next is the final match in the U.S. title tournament. They show a clip of Ric Flair from Thunder saying Scott Hall had 24 hours to call him or he's going to strip him of the belt. The United States title, that is. Ric Flair says as of midnight last night, Scott Hall is no longer the champion because he says so. What he says goes. They show a bunch of qualifying matches with Scott Steiner, Meng, and Booker T. Chris Jericho lost to Scott Steiner. But they show the clip of Jericho asking Ric Flair in the locker room with Arn Anderson if he can get back into the tournament because Kurt Hennig was injured and couldn't compete. They show a clip of Booker T and Jericho fighting. Scott Steiner comes out with a chair. He swings and misses, and Booker kicks the chair back into his face. Jericho was disqualified, and Booker T advanced to the finals. But on Thunder, Jericho and Booker T fought again. This time, Steiner, with the referee distracted, hit Booker in the face with the chair. Jericho put Booker in the Lion Tamer, but Stevie Ray came out of the crowd and hit Chris Jericho in the back of the head with a slapjack. Booker T ends up winning, even though they didn't show the whole finish. Booker is and Booker is also the television champion that won the belt in a tournament, defeating Scott Steiner a couple of months ago. History about to repeat itself for another title right there. And I think also this just goes to show how deep that WCW roster was, because you look at everyone we have on this card, it's crazy. But then there's so many other guys who don't even have a match. They talked about Scott Hall. One of the bits of trivia, I know a lot of people think this was the time that Scott Hall had some of his rehab issues, but in reality, he was dealing with a pretty serious knee injury that almost completely ended his career. But, you had Scott Hall not on the card. Bret Hart hasn't been on a pay-per-view card since World War III? Which is wild that you're not booking Bret Hart of all people. And then, Luger and
Jericho and Ming and Finley and so many other, amazing talents on the roster at this point.
Yeah. So here we go. It's Book versus Scott Steiner for the vacant WCW United States Championship.
These guys always do good together.
Oh yeah, I mean the final WCW Championship match on Nitro, where Booker won and took the title to WWF. Steiner was in the Wolfpack at the time, but as of this show, time of this show, and the NWO had basically been split up. When the wrestling actually starts is decent, with Booker stuff looking sharp and Steiner being believable whenever he's on offense. He actually bumps pretty well for a big guy, which is he's always done. He's always bumped really good for a big guy. Booker gets some shine on Steiner for a bit, with Steiner actually begging off on this at one stage. But eventually Steiner manages to cut off Booker and level him with a chair on the outside of the ring a couple of times. It should really be a DQ, but because of WCW in 1999, it's not. There are a shitload of steroids chants at one point while Steiner works Booker over. Things get silly as Steiner literally kicks Booker right in the cock and balls. But the referee
in front of the ref.
Does not call for the DQ.
Johnny Boone is so afraid of Scott Steiner in this match.
It's crazy. Mike Tenay at one point is screaming that the ref is too afraid to call for the bell because he's afraid that Steiner might do to him. Booker eventually makes a comeback and the crowd's into it. The ref ends up getting caught in the melee and takes a bump. Booker gets the axe kick, but the referee is out and, of course, couldn't count the pin. Booker helps him up, only for Steiner to bump them together and bump the ref once again because Steiner's a fucking man.
Chad Steiner in this match was incredible. He was such a Chad. Remember at the very start of the match, he goes up to some dude's girlfriend and she's just rubbing on him for 3 minutes straight.
Yeah. And the dude's just sitting in the back being cucked. Oh, it was awful. Dude.
Yeah, well, Steiner's just flexing on him. I love Scott Steiner's crazy. I loved it.
Can we talk about how good that television championship looked too? I love that belt. That belt is so awesome.
That and the U.S. title, WCW's championships always looked really beautiful.
Yeah, until they busted out the WCW Cruiserweight tag titles and they look like shit.
They were dying at this point, so I want to cut them some slack on that.
Yeah. Down Booker gets the 110th Street Slam. Heads up top, but Steiner jams him on the ropes and crotches him and follows up with a runner off the top, but Booker manages to kick out at 2 for a very close near fall. I thought that was it. That actually fooled me. Steiner decides he's had enough of Booker and gets an object in his tights. Booker manages to fend him off and goes to suplex him, but Steiner hits him with the object and Booker collapses for the 3 when the referee is revived. So it was a fuck finish with Steiner using the object in his tights. Not a good match, but not bad either. Finish
international object.
Yeah. Television championship just a couple of months sooner, which should have gave this match away what was going to happen in the beginning. Steiner celebrates with his belt and yells a bunch of shit at the fans like he tends to do.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the whole show, anytime Steiner went to the outside, he was just yelling at the fans left and right, and even when especially how disgusted he looked when they would start touching on him. And threatened to punch him. That was something. Also, I really appreciate at the very start when Booker T is coming out, how him and Doug Dillinger just dapping it up on.
Yeah.
That was fun to me.
Much as Booker's opinions about wrestling nowadays don't kind of align with mine. Booker was a fucking Chad, dude. Booker is one of the greatest, not only one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but one of the best comedically. Not trying to be funny wrestlers ever. He's just so good, man. He's always been absolutely great. And another, speaking of just kind of great tropes overall, I liked the element here of Scott Steiner's abuse of the referee starting to backfire on him later on, when he was doing some dirty stuff and then he goes for the count, but the ref's knocked out because of him. Yeah. I thought that was really nice. We don't really see that trope too often in wrestling, especially not anymore. Yeah, he has a visual pinfall. He's the one that bonked he's the one that bonked him and he turns around and he's, what the hell,
Yes, it was what have I done? So I wish we'd see some more stuff like that. And I also thought it was unintentionally hilarious. Again, Scott Steiner kicking Booker and his tees, kicking the Shucky Duckies right in front of referee Johnny Boone. Who, Johnny Boone, got a crazy pinfall when he was just a jobber on Disco Inferno in '96 on WCW Pro, so he was a wrestler.
So up next is Goldberg versus Kevin Nash, and they're saying that this is a big rematch. Yep, since Nash Goldberg at Starrcade with the help of Scott Hall and the cattle prod. Don't know why it's taken them so long to actually do this match, but I guess they were trying to build anticipation, and they failed spectacularly.
Right.
Nash actually takes a lot in this match, but Goldberg eventually manages to catch Nash with a running shoulder tackle to finally get a foothold on the match and adds a big underhook suplex for good measure before flooring Nash with a big kick. That kick looked disgusting. He got his foot all the way up and murdered Nash's face.
It tends to be what he does this year.
Oh, I know. The crowd is into it as well. Nash dodges a spear, and the ref takes it instead, which was awesome.
Nash hops there, dude.
Dude, I love that spot. When he jumped and Goldberg took out the ref, I went, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So the crowd is into it as well, but now it's Nash dodges a spear. Takes it instead, leading to Luger clocking Goldberg with the chair. Goldberg looks done following that, but he clocks Nash in the head with it, and it takes Luger out with the big boot. A good-looking spear, and you could tell that Goldberg was being a little nice with it. He didn't actually kill Kevin Nash with this spear, but he follows up with a very impressive jackhammer, holding him up there for a minute, and Goldberg, with a little fuckery himself, gets his win back from Starrcade. Not as important, not as memorable, but Goldberg must pose, brother.
Exactly. Honestly, this match for what it was, I thought it was pretty fun. Did you notice too in the promo video leading up to this, apart from showing Nash defeating Goldberg at Starrcade, you also had Nash defeating people who jumped ship to WWF at this point. So Nash killing Public Enemy and killing the Giant.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and there was a thing with Public Enemy where Public Enemy had like a problem everywhere they went besides ECW. Right. I think they got into a real life fight with the Acolytes on Sunday Night Heat.
Yep.
And then they came over and they were like rude to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall backstage. And Nash was like, well, I'm just going to kill these two fucking guys. So I'm always kind of happy because I don't like anybody really see anybody like get their ass whooped, like the whole mass transit incident with New Jack and shit, But if Nash gave Johnny Grunge a couple of extra shots because he was a dick, I'm not going to fight him on it.
Right. Which sucks because I used to really enjoy Public Enemy.
But here's the thing. Heyman said you accentuate the positives and hide the negatives. And he accentuated the positives that Public Enemy came out and they had the crowd rocking because they were a party group. But when that bell rang, it was the drizzling shits.
And then the bell rang.
Yeah. So that's why they always brought tables to the ring. And most of their matches involved tables. Yeah, because they couldn't wrestle. So they just fucking carelessly put guys through tables.
Oh, dude, I hate the dubbed over theme song for them. It doesn't feel right for the WCW shows.
No, it's awful. And what's his name is awful too. So when Mikey Whipwreck returns to ECW, there's an episode of Hardcore TV where he's the surprise opponent. I forget of who. I think it might have been Jason, the sexiest man alive. And they're dubbing this music, and it takes him 5 minutes to come out. And then I looked up, I went to ReCW, which is the Internet Archive of ECW shows, and he came out to Bomb Track by Rage Against the Machine, but it played the whole like bass in the beginning, like the 5 minute bass, and then when it hit that's when he came out. But they played the whole 5 minute bass, and all they did was just show the black curtain, and I was like, what song is this? And when I saw it was Bomb Track, I was like, oh yeah, that's a 6 minute song. Like, fuck, dude.
ECW always did that thing too, especially with the fan cam thing, fan cam shows where you'd have like the surprise music playing and then it would hit that crescendo part. Like, if you don't know this, chat, check out Scott Hall entering the ECW arena to Ready or Not.
Oh, dude, so good,
iconic,
so good. But so the last match that we have to talk about tonight is the Fatal 4-Way for the WCW Heavyweight Championship with Sting, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and Diamond Dallas Page. So, Don't show Jay-Z that. He'll get mad. Um, so the story here is that Flair had won the WCW presidency at the turn of the year and then started feuding with Hogan, which had led him to having a cage match the previous month at Uncensored. Flair used his position as president to win the match in a screwy fashion, which led him to going heel, and Hogan in turn went babyface. Sting had recently returned, and DDP hadn't really done much since the turn of the year, so they decided to throw all four guys into a four corners match and try to juice the buy rate of the show.
Yeah. Hey, you got like all the big stars everyone loves, so might as well.
Sting and Hogan are faces. DDP is mostly a tweener, and Ric Flair is the ultra heel, while Savage Allegiance isn't really known, although he has had feuds with all four men in the past, and could go either way depending on how he feels that night. So everyone takes turns pairing off with everyone else to start, and it's not really all that bad, honestly. Sting and DDP are in particular do some really nice stuff, and they're really on a roll during this era when it comes to working with one another, as their Nitro Classic is not soon after this. Seeing as Hogan wasn't winning, he decides to bow out early in the match, about 5 minutes into the match, by DDP putting him around the ring post and giving him a figure four. This leads Hogan being helped to the back and turning the match into a triple threat.
Which here's another important thing to remember. At this point, they pretty much wrote Eric Bischoff out of WCW. So this was Bischoff's return, and we see him with the gray hair, which was absolutely jarring at this point.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. When he first debuts that gray hair, we're like, look what they've done to my boy.
Yeah, and Hogan not working for him, but in reality, he's getting ready for his own knee surgery.
Oh yeah. Sting actually does manage to finally successfully stinger splash someone while they're on the guardrail, but then ruins it by going for it again and completely misses and eats shit. DDP wisely hangs back while Sting and Flair go at it with their usual good stuff, match stuff. Flair gets a cheap shot in and Sting, but Sting no-sells it and sends Flair to the outside. This has now become your standard triple threat with two guys in the ring while the other guy rests outside, which is a shame because I was really enjoying the dynamic of all four guys interacting in the ring.
Dude, was it just me, or did I kind of think there was going to be that WCW logic thing and Randy Savage is going to now introduce himself into the match?
Dude, I was like, this dude is going to go over to the timekeeper and be like, yeah, now I'm in this match.
Right?
Yeah.
I literally was thinking that was going to happen here.
Yeah, so the work is decent because DDP and Flair almost always turned up for big matches, and Sting was thankfully motivated for this one. Putting in a pay-per-view effort, we get a triple sleeper spot, which I'm always love.
With an incredible stunner counter.
Which is it's always a cute thing to do in a multi-person match, and it gets a nice reaction from the crowd. Flair and DDP try to double on Sting, but he starts stingering up for a big pop and runs wild on the two, whips their asses for like a good minute.
Crowd loved it. They were super behind Sting here.
Dude, pounding his chest, the whole the Steve Borden special. Flair looks to have Sting beat in the figure four. But Savage, who was not involved in this match whatsoever, just doing his referee duties, decides
that was a good referee too at this point.
Yeah, decides that all times he's going to climb to the top rope and drop the elbowiest elbow. Flair. I'm like, what the fuck? So, yeah.
Just out of nowhere, too.
So, Savage breaks up the hold that looked like DDP was going to tap out on. DDP looks confused for a minute because Sting is over, like, under the rope. So DDP goes over and just stomps on Sting a couple of times, and Flair stands up and just boom, Diamond Cutter, 1, 2, 3, and Diamond Dallas Page for the first time ever is the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And Macho Man raises his hand and then just walks out of the ring and walks to the back like nothing ever happened.
Right. And this is a fun point, too, is, we kind of mentioned at the very start of the show, Diamond Dallas Page is the only guy going into this match who wasn't a former WCW heavyweight champion, including the referee, Randy Savage.
Yeah.
But I thought this was really appropriate, too, that it was Randy Savage, of all people, who was holding up Diamond Dallas Page's arm in victory and giving him the title, because I think back 2 years prior at Spring Stampede 97, how DDP had that star-making match with Randy Savage, and Savage did the job and put him over. And, just the fact that Savage is the one of all people giving him the title, I thought was a real nice touch. And I enjoyed that to kind of cap this off.
Wow, WCW did long-term
Right.
storytelling? Holy shit.
Right. Huh. Again, this is the last great WCW show, baby.
But, Nick, overall, scale of 1 to 5, where would you rank this show?
Oh man, honestly, I'll give it a solid 4.5. This show was awesome. Was by no means, the perfect wrestling show, but yeah, just this was such an easy watch from beginning to end, because even the slower matches, they weren't terrible for what they were. And I was thoroughly sports entertained, making my way through this. And it was nice to be able to rewatch this, because I remember as a young man, I had a lot of fond memories with this show. And, like I said at the start of the show, the start of our recap, this has all the major players for WCW. So if you've never seen any WCW wrestling shows before, this is a great one to start out with, and then take yourself back to 1989 and start binging from there on, because again, you have so many people that have been integral throughout the different years of WCW's history. And this match, or this whole show, was just so good and such an easy watch. And again, it's such a variety show. You had a little bit of everything. You got some great cruiserweight high flyers, you got long-term storytelling, you got the drama, you've got fun hardcore wrestling with Hack and Bam Bam. Anything you could ever ask for in a wrestling show is here, and I really love and appreciate that about Spring Stampede 99. Mac, how about you? What would you rank this?
So I gave it a 4, and the only 4 out of 5. The only reason I gave it a 4 was there's a couple of factors. Number one, just the rules were all over the place.
Right.
I'm not a real big stickler for the rules, but in the grudge tag match between the Four Horsemen and the Flock, you had 3 guys down in the ring. Charles Robinson's doing a 10 count. You had Raven, who was the legal man who fell down the steps on the outside taking a nap for 5 minutes, but he wasn't counted out, and all of a sudden Perry Saturn became the legal man. You have Scott Steiner making sure that Booker T never has children, 2 minutes into their match. And they explained it away by saying that the referee was scared of Scott Steiner, would beat him up if he disqualified him. I understand that. But just not having a clear idea of what the rules were going to be going into every match kind of, was kind of oh, this is dude, we just had an amazing hardcore match 3 matches ago. Another thing too was the Disco Inferno and Conan match, which was, it was good because they were stealing each other's moves and shit, but that was my plus 10. That was my skip of the night. I just didn't, I couldn't have to. And then poor Mikey Whipwreck just getting put in the ring with another Scotty Riggs push that was bound to fail. And just the whole Mikey Whipwreck starting off the match with the spinning back elbow, and then Scotty Riggs winning with the spinning back elbow just kind of brought it down from a 4.5 to a 4 for me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Also, I have a little bit of trivia for this show to throw out there. So I know a lot of people might look at the VHS covers, but they kind of retroactively changed that. This was actually the first WCW show that featured that kind of weird bird logo on it. Because previously uncensored, that one, if you look at some of the posters for it, that one had the old WCW NWO logo right before the change. Now the VHS release, that cover does retroactively feature the bird logo, but prior to this, Spring Stampede was the original one to feature that stupid bird logo nobody likes.
Now, how long did it take you to realize that the bird logo is actually WCW spelt out? Because it took me 20 years.
Dude, legitimately, this was me looking at it because I couldn't figure out that it said WCW. And I was like, how is that a logo? What does that mean? What is it supposed to represent? And I was staring at it forever until I'm like, okay, is that a W? That is a W. Okay, and that's the C.
And that's a W. Yeah. And people give the revamped logo when they went to WWF a hard time, so. Right. But before we finish up, I want to point out that in typical WCW fashion, off a great just spectacular pay-per-view like that, how do they follow it up the next night? How do they capitalize on this momentum? Well, the next night, WCW was at the Sundome in Yakima, Washington. The match, the show opened up with the Cruiserweight champion Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Juventud
actually,
Guerrera.
Mac, don't forget, it actually opened up with Diamond Dallas Page with the title and Randy Savage confronting him by saying, "Ooh, yeah, you owe me one now."
Yeah. But I'm
and
just
then
saying,
Scott Steiner jumps in.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the matches, because just the whole thing. But the first actual match that we see is Rey Mysterio, who had to beat Kidman for the title last night, so that had consequences, facing Juventud Guerrera, who almost killed Blitzkrieg to get this title shot.
Right.
The match ends after 5 minutes and 40 seconds on a DQ because Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko run out and just start whooping everybody's asses. Like,
they do.
Like, I don't get this. Like, they're tag champions. They're obviously way past the Cruiserweight division, and they still feel the need to come out and interrupt the WCW Cruiserweight title match. So how do we follow up that huge Bam Bam Bigelow win over Hardcore Hack? Well, they have him in a kendo stick match with Hugh Morris, and he defeats Hugh Morris in 4 minutes and 56 seconds. For some reason, wanted to bring back the Master Blasters. I don't know why, but El Dandy and La Parka versus the Master Blasters, Master Blaster Blade and Master Blaster Iron, go to a no contest after 1:35 when Kevin Nash comes out and just starts whipping the Master Blaster's ass.
That's because Kevin Nash was reminded of the Master Blasters, and he's like, none of that.
Yeah. So, we had Kidman losing the WCW Cruiserweight title the previous night. He actually has a pretty decent match, which is probably the only halfway decent match on the show, by defeating Psychosis in 7 minutes and 38 seconds. We had a very, very short WCW World Television title match between Booker T and Rick Steiner that went 5 minutes and 22 seconds, with Booker T retaining. So now, Bill Goldberg has finally got the revenge on Kevin Nash that he needed. He finally got that pinfall win over Kevin Nash. So how does WCW take the hottest act in the history of professional wrestling, well, at least in WCW, and follow up on this night? Well, let me tell you. They put Goldberg in a match with Kenny Chaos, and they make them almost go 5 minutes.
Danger, high voltage.
This match actually went 4 minutes and 23 seconds, and that was 4 minutes and 21 seconds too long.
I gotta say, I remember this one because I remember Chaos getting a little too much offense in there. I'm like, Goldberg, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, especially after beating Kevin Nash last night and effectively, like, stopping Lex Luger's interference, you know? Right. So, but then we actually had a really good Sting and Ric Flair match because they're always good.
Oh, yeah, these guys deliver.
We had Sting defeating Ric Flair with Arn Anderson in 14 minutes and 24 seconds. And we actually had a halfway decent Diamond Dallas Page, who was jumped at the beginning of the night by Scott Steiner, defeating him in a champion versus champion match where Scott Steiner's title wasn't on the line, but in 13 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, I think you can go back and pinpoint the Cruiserweight Championship match, the Kidman and Psychosis match, the Cruiserweight title match, the Goldberg match, as starting to fall off a little bit. Yeah. Because you just rejuvenated Goldberg, you got him back to where you want him to be, and then you put him in a fucking 5-minute match with Kenny Chaos.
Yeah, and I think this is too, like we mentioned with the pay-per-view itself, there definitely is that kind of logic problem that WCW had throughout the show, and that logic is just continuing on, and we can see just why WCW isn't in business anymore and why we went from having such an awesome card that honestly, when you look at it on paper, the way it flowed is really nice, but it just becomes a mess later on. And oh my gosh, especially when we get to the era of when Vince Russo makes 3 hours of Nitro completely unwatchable with all his quick cuts.
Oh, dude. I mean, Vince Russo coming in and Bischoff coming in and stripping everybody of the belts and then doing his like San Francisco 49ers match and New York rules match and no referee match. You count your own pins match. And it's called a swerve, bro. Like, a lot of people say that Eric Bischoff killed WCW. Now, I think everybody who knows me from my Instagram, Curbside Hero, cheap plug, and from the Dirt Sheet Radio podcast knows that I absolutely have no love in my heart for Eric Bischoff. But when you consider that Eric Bischoff left in 1999 and Vince Russo jumped ship to WCW right around that time, that Vince Russo, the first thing he did out the gate was a Jim Ross over-the-top parody with, what was his name? Ed Ferrara.
Yeah. Oklahoma.
As Oklahoma, coming out with barbecue sauce and doing a Bell's palsy face, and then having him feud with Medusa and saying Medusa should be barefoot and pregnant and in the kitchen and that women have no. I mean, if Eric Bischoff was 75% responsible for WCW dying, Vince Russo's got to take not the rest of the credit, because Hogan, Nash, and Hall also had something to do with that, but he sprinkled in there.
Absolutely.
Vince Russo, he did irreparable damage to that company.
Like, I think the end of WCW, its demise, was always going to boil down to just kind of death by 1,000 cuts. But I think that final serrated cut that couldn't be fixed was Vince Russo, 100%. And I just wish, like, you know, when we look at what this card was and how the show overall for Spring Stampede went, I wish they stayed the course, because I think if they kept going from this model and they just kind of used that as a template for all the shows that followed, oh man, WCW would have been in such a better state by the following year.
Now you look at that card for Spring Stampede, right?
Yeah.
So you have Macho Man as a special guest referee in the main event. You have the built-in story with him and Randy Savage, okay? Randy Savage says, "You owe me one." Okay, you're going to get a future title shot. Scott Steiner jumps them. You got your main event for that night. Diamond Dallas Page vanquishes Scott Steiner. Wouldn't you logically book Macho Man versus Diamond Dallas Page for the next pay-per-view?
Yeah,
for the title.
That would be Slamboree. And instead, guess what? Booker Nash is here.
But now here's the thing. So you go to the next pay-per-view. You have Macho Man Randy Savage versus Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page can either win or lose there. It really doesn't matter. He can either win or lose. But
oh, Mac, I think we lost you. But yeah, like, because I look at the Slamboree card and Randy Savage is just backing up Gorgeous George in her match with Charles Robinson.
Yeah, but then after that match with DDP, whether he wins or loses, you can realistically Goldberg face the winner of that match, because Goldberg vanquished Nash. You know, maybe have him come out the next night and face somebody with some credibility. Maybe instead of having Sting in that match, maybe you have Goldberg versus Ric Flair, and then the next week you go and you do Goldberg versus Sting, and have Goldberg beat some credible guys, and eventually build his way back up to the title. But instead, what they do, they turn Goldberg heel and have him join Bischoff and Russo eventually, and just totally kill his career dead.
Man, it's
depressing.
So
it's depressing to think about. It's depressing to think about anything at the end of WCW, because if they had just zigged where they had zagged, just gone left where they had gone right, like so many things could have, you know. And here's a little bit of trivia for you. When Scott Hall went to WCW in 1996, the WWF sued WCW because they were still portraying as Scott Hall and Kevin Nash being under WWF contract. WWF settled out of court with WCW for the sum of $2.5 million, which is ironically the amount of money that Vince McMahon ended up buying WCW for in 2001.
Right. And hey, that's also, you know, what kind of led to the caveat from the agreement that they would be able to have almost that first dibs on WCW, and it's a shame just the full circle nature of where we went from WCW. And honestly, it's such a business case study overall with how we went from something so good to so bad. And hopefully, in the course of us doing more of this, we'll be able to see more of just why WCW died, and we'll see what, everything went wrong. And if we see any shows following Spring Stampede, we'll also be able to truly say whether or not this was the last great WCW pay-per-view.
But now you know that we've done a good show, so the next time our schedules link up, we have to do a terrible WCW show.
Oh man, there's a lot of options there, unfortunately.
So is it going to be Greed, Sin, Mayhem?
Well, we know it won't be Big Bang.
Oh no, poor Rob Van Dam was supposed to win the title at that show. God damn it. But hey, listen guys, we need to get ready to watch SmackDown in about 10 minutes. And so we can get on with you guys around 10:30 tonight and discuss the Motor City Machine Guns, which WWE has already spoiled online, which they shouldn't have done, and they suck for doing that.
That was the choice, but we have a lot of people excited for it.
Yep. But the 1999 Spring Stampede recap show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Me and Nick will eventually, we'll talk about it for 3 months, and then our schedule will get back on, and we'll drop little hints. We'll drop little hints on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook the next time we're going to do this. I'll make another cool graphic, and I'm sure Nick and I will want to kill ourselves because we're going to watch a bad show next time. But yeah, Nick, if you want to take it away, you're better at wrapping things up than I am. So go right ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Well, yeah, we have the curbside hero himself right there, Mack. So go make sure you give him a follow on the social medias. And speaking of following on social medias, you'll be seeing me posting a lot on the Dirt Sheet Radio channel. So if you see Nick LaRocco on there, please, please, please give me a follow. I truly appreciate it. And guess what? Dirt Sheet Radio, we are always on. Like we were talking about, Mack said it. Tonight, we're going to have good old SmackDown recap. We're going to be joined by the lovely John Escudero and maybe some other friends. We'll see about that. But yeah, that's going to be every Friday night. And of course, we're going to be going Monday nights as well, because you can't have SmackDown without Raw. And of course, on Tuesdays, you've got NXT. Wednesdays, you got the Dynamite recap show, which I am on. And guess what?
Neek Dynamite.
Let's go. And hey, if you want to catch both of us again later on, the best kept secret in podcasting, Mack and myself will be joined by John Escudero and Greg Thomas for the flagship Dirt Sheet Radio podcast. Later on Thursdays, of course, you got the TNA Impact recap show. CJ and Tyler, they don't do the Level Up Adventure anymore. It's going to be a lot more wrestling based. So we'll see what they kind of do with that. We got the lads from 3NT also on Sundays, the boys. And yeah, this has been a fantastic show. I had a lot of fun watching the show, Mack. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you and being able to reminisce about WCW. I want to just one more time before we go. We got 4 fingers up there. For Horseman, the symbol of excellence. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thank you, chat, for joining us.